guess we're recording. I came from Northeast Ohio, grew up in Twinsburg, and worked for Summit County for a handful of years before I joined Esri. So local to the area, and it's good to chat with you all again about, in this case, creating dashboards with ArcGIS, right? So the title here is creating dashboards with configurable apps, but more broadly, what more focused, we're going to be talking about ArcGIS dashboards in general. Although there are other ways, I guess, to create some dashboards. This is kind of the sort of the flagship dashboard product inside of the ArcGIS platform. So feel free to stop me, ask questions along the way, and we'll just kind of dive into the agenda. So yeah, I want to take just a second to talk about the product in general and the overview of it, patterns of use, moving into that, so how we're seeing dashboards being used. Many of you have probably stood up dashboards before or have a good idea of how dashboards are used, but I've got a couple of examples. I'll call it my parade of dashboards that I'll just kind of run through just to sort of give you a good idea of what other customers and even folks internally to Esri, some of our solution teams are actually building with the dashboard product. Talk about new enhancements. We'll go into actually authoring a dashboard. Depending on how much time and how I'm doing, will determine how deep I get into building that dashboard, and a little bit about the road ahead. So it's jam-packed, so I'm just going to kind of keep diving in and just moving on. Okay, so ArcGIS dashboard. Now, I will stop really quickly before I even jump into what's on this slide. You're probably wondering, what is ArcGIS dashboards and where do operations dashboards for ArcGIS go? So somebody well, I shouldn't say this out loud, but I swear there's folks in Redlands that sit back in a room and change names of products just to confuse both me and internal Esri, and of course you guys as customers. But actually, I'm just kidding. We changed the name to ArcGIS dashboards. I want to say around the first of the year, and there was a specific reason to that actually. So in the past, operations dashboard has been a part of the platform, but it really was for our authoring and building dashboards that were in operational awareness sort of situations. So think, monitoring snow plows in real time, or maybe monitoring, like in an EOC example, maybe there's a marathon going on, having a dashboard visualizing where everything and everybody are at in real time, right? So those are more operational, examples of dashboards. And what we've since seen, right, over the last couple of years is folks using that operational dashboard capability to build out other things like performance metrics or visualization of just data, even without geography in it, right? So just flat, like straight up dashboards without, an operational component or really any spatial component in some cases. So that's really the core reason behind the naming. It's still the same capability underneath the hood. What you're used to building inside of operations dashboard, maybe last year, the previous year, you didn't lose any of that capability or lose those dashboards. It's still there. It's just, just a different name. So same capability, but just wanted to call that out and make sure that was clear. So what it is our out-of-the-box web application focused on authoring and viewing dashboards. Ultimately, what it's all about is providing key insights to your data on a single screen, right, at-a-glance visualization. It ships within ArcGIS Online, which is our SaaS WebGIS, and it's just included within your ArcGIS organization. So it's in the box, so to speak, so that the capability is just there. And it updates about 4 times a year in concert with the ArcGIS Online regular updates, which we're getting ready to ship one out here in mid-September, somewhere in September. And it's also made available inside of ArcGIS Enterprise. So it was available at the 10.6 release of ArcGIS Enterprise. At that release, you had to download an installer for the builder experience to just be inside of your portal. But then at 10.6.1 and beyond, it's in the box, so to speak, so there's no actual install. So I just wanted to call that out if you guys are, have ArcGIS Enterprise deployed with portals sitting on top of your server, right, a base deployment of ArcGIS Enterprise, and you're not seeing it. If you're at 10.6, you got to do you have to install some software. If it's before 10.6, it's not available, and then after 10.6, it's it's just there, right, as another app, just like Web App Builder or any of other configurable applications. So what does it give you, right? Built-in functionality, which is all about, ready-to-use data visualization. So there's maps, of course, with legends, serial charts, pie charts. There's an indicator widget. a gauge widget, list widget, which we'll get into some of the details of what these all mean. There's a details widget, just a handful of visualizations and different ways you can carve up and present your data. And then beyond that, just the data visualization aspect, there's various tools for interactivity options, right? So tools that interact with the map. And then dashboard elements configured to communicate with each other. So we refer to this, and it's not just an ArcGIS or Esri thing, it's just dashboards in general, cross-filtering, right? So if you make a selection in one widget, maybe you click on a piece of a pie chart, do something else with the map or other widgets associated with that particular dashboard, right? So this concept of kind of tying elements together is all supported inside of ArcGIS dashboards now. So a little bit more about the elements that are available right now. I think I mentioned a couple of them already, but there's also things like UI elements, like the header and the side panel. So you can actually drop in a nice looking header with your logo on it. There's a side panel element that allows you to, you've seen applications before where there's it's almost like a drawer that opens up on the left-hand side or the right-hand side of the application with content inside of that drawer. There's a side panel widget that does that kind of functionality. Of course, map, like I mentioned, the legend. I've mentioned serial charts, which is think bar charts or line graphs or time series, things like that. Pie charts, indicator, gauge. A list widget is just simply listing features inside of a data set. Details, if you want to select a feature on the map, show the specific details for that particular selected feature. We've recently added a rich text editor, so you can really customize your application and drop in essentially raw HTML to do a number of different things with that, with that particular element. So there's a lot of versatility with that, and I've got an example of what that could look like. And then embedded content too. So this is relatively new, and I've got a little, some more slides that kind of talks about that at further detail. So just some of the dashboard of elements, actually all of them, right? What's kind of built in terms of functionality in the app. And then really what they do, right, when you wire all these elements together into a dashboard, it brings that data together, right? So, this can be, it's ArcGIS platform data, right? So real-time information, and that can come in two different ways, right, to me. So of course, when you think real time, maybe your mind goes to, or at least mine does, goes to IoT or Internet of Things or tracking AVLs in real time or flood gauge systems in rivers in real time, right? And it can certainly pipe that information in and present it in a meaningful way in a dashboard, this application. But I would say in real time too is folks using our field applications out in the field, right? So you're using Collector, you're using Survey 123, maybe Workforce for ArcGIS to coordinate the work that's being done out in the field. Visualizing that information as it happens, as it's edited out in the field in real time is also supported inside of the dashboard. And I actually want to pause there for just 1 second and maybe pivot just a touch, not too much, away from dashboard and just call attention to a new capability in this umbrella of field applications that we started socializing and talking about around the UC timeframe. It's called Field Maps for ArcGIS. So there's a new capability coming out. It is essentially a new field application that takes all of these different components that I mentioned before, so Survey 123, Workforce for ArcGIS, Collector capabilities, Explorer capabilities, and sort of bundles them all up into one application. So it makes that end user experience really, really easy to use, so you're not bouncing in between applications, right? So that was one of the biggest feedbacks. I mean, our field apps are extremely popular, but one of the, the critiques or feedback, pieces of feedback that we got from our customers was, hey, this is great, but my end users don't like to bounce from Workforce to Collector and back to Workforce and to Navigator. Right, it just kind of gets cumbersome and a little bit confusing for some of those non-GIS or non-technical users. This is our answer to that, right? So Field Maps is, it's on the horizon. I want to say the beta's out right now. The first release is coming in September with that next shipment of ArcGIS Online. So heads up and look out for that. And I just wanted to make sure I mentioned that new capability. Any questions at all on that? I know this is a dashboard technical session, so I'm going to move on, but please let me know. Or maybe Dick, I'll come back and do another presentation about that when it comes on, if you guys will have me. But just wanted to call that out. Okay, so back to dashboards. Which data can you bring together? Other data sets like content from your GIS server that you have right on premise. You can feed in your map services and your feature services, and of course your base maps that you maybe cached up inside of your ArcGIS server, ArcGIS Enterprise. Those can be consumed inside a dashboard. as well as other online content and services from ArcGIS Online. Think Living Atlas, right? So content shared from other organizations, all of that. It's we work against this common format inside of ArcGIS called a feature service or a map service. So really anything that can work and read against a map service is going to be able to pipe into a dashboard. Okay, spent enough time on that slide, so let's move on to sort of patterns of use, right? So again, this is a couple of examples, right, that I particularly deal with. Again, I focus on local government customers, but Esri, works with a handful of customers all across the board, utilities and commercial businesses and you name it, right? So for me, I mean, what I see dashboards being used a lot are in ways of, monitoring, managing operations and assets. So IoT, like I mentioned before, providing that common operational picture of real-time awareness. Event management, so say in that same vein, situational awareness, extremely popular in emergency management situations where you can visualize assets, personnel activities, things like weather feeds, right, all in one at-a-glance application. And then, like I mentioned before, when we started to think about this new name for operations dashboard, shifting to ArcGIS dashboards, summarizing performance metrics, visualizations of data sets, right? Maybe not in an operational situation, maybe not in, or an event management or something like that. Just visualizing data, performance metrics in a dashboard. That's where we're starting to see use there. And I've got some examples of that coming here actually now. So. Again, just a couple of patterns that I wanted to call out. So I am going to kind of bounce out, and hopefully we can elegantly do this without messing up the feed. But I wanted to show a couple of examples, and again, like I mentioned before, my little parade of dashboards. So again, I'm showing my browser right now. I'm going to assume that you guys can see these dashboards as I start kind of demoing them. Dick or anybody else speak up if they're not coming through, but I'll just kind of keep going through them. So one example that I wanted to mention, and unfortunately I have to talk about this, but it's a great example of the dashboarding capability inside of ArcGIS. It's the Johns Hopkins University COVID-19 dashboard that has really been the go-to source for information related to and data sets related to COVID-19, right? So this has been wildly popular. This has been behind the president as he's doing his briefings and whatnot. It's all over the place, right? CNN, I've seen it all over. So extremely, extremely popular dashboard, obviously, given the content that's presented in it. But this is, if you were wondering, this is ArcGIS dashboards, right? Just using Esri technology out of the box without any coding at all. So you can, it's all interactive. You can drill into a particular area. Things update based on that. Right now I'm looking at the US map, but if I click on global map, and again, this dashboard is just directly embedded inside of their main Johns Hopkins website. So again, representing a pattern of taking a dashboard, authoring it inside of ArcGIS, and being able to just kind of drop it into an existing website is supported. But again, yeah, this is that worldwide global map for COVID-19. Again, this is kind of organically been the go-to resource for mapping this pandemic that we're in right now. Moving away from that one, just other examples out here. Hopefully this works. This is a Waze dashboard that the Colorado Department of Transportation has put together. So what they're doing is in real time, they're piping in alerts from Waze. So you're seeing that list of those alerts right here. If I click on one of those, it's not zooming to the map, but they've configured it just to flash where that alert is. There's some information about that particular alert. Down here, we're showing the alert types, alert counts down here. And right here, it doesn't look like this is working right now. I apologize. Maybe I'll try a different one. But what we're seeing in the map is a list of video cameras in the map, right? So this list corresponds to some features on the map that represents the location of those cameras. And if it were working, and I'll try a couple of these other ones, you should be able to link out and view the real-time. Maybe this system is down right now. I promise it worked yesterday. Apologies on that, but you could see in real time what that camera was picking up out in the field and visualize that directly inside of a dashboard. And that's an example of that embedded content that I was talking about before. Maybe another local example that I wanted to bring attention to is, maybe shifting gears into the world of assessment and land records and the work that auditors do across the state, really across the country, and using our, value analysis dashboard. So this is put out by Greene County, Ohio, using ArcGIS dashboards again. And ultimately what it does is it allows appraisers, assessors, and even the public to visualize the impact of sales, foreclosures, assessment appeals, and things like that on the property value in a particular taxation neighborhood. So in the application, you have the ability to select one of these neighborhoods. It will zoom to that particular neighborhood that I selected. It's going to filter down all these other widgets, right? The sales number, the Board of Revision appeals, the foreclosure. So in this case, this neighborhood doesn't have any of those, right? But you've got the ability to kind of filter down and just show that data that intersects that particular spatial extent. So that's a pretty cool one. And this, for folks maybe that might be interested in this one, Greene County actually deployed one of our out-of-the-box solutions. That's our value analysis dashboard solution, configured it to their workflows, piped their data into it, and that's where this came from, right? So they've done a lot of, some other tweaks and changes to it, but the heart of it is actually a solution that we ship with ArcGIS. Moving on, I don't know if Stark County is in the room or in the in my browser, I guess, but this is a really good one too. Fatal overdoses within Stark County from 2012 to 2017. So it represents a couple of things, right? We've got these filter widgets that I'll talk about later on, but you can filter of those overdoses based on age range and maybe the gender, maybe males, right? And again, everything is all connected, everything's wired up, and it allows you to kind of filter down and carve up the data kind of dynamically inside of the dashboard. So this is another really good one too. Other patterns of use, I wanted to mention how folks are taking dashboards and enhancing websites, particularly ArcGIS Hub websites, and that's what you're seeing here. This is Johns Creek's data hub. Johns Creek is a suburb of Atlanta, and they're doing some really awesome stuff with our visualization tools, including Hub and Dashboard. So they've got this kind of one-stop shop for communicating data, allowing folks to download data, but then they're also presenting data in dashboards, right? So instead of taking data, pushing it out, and letting somebody manipulate that data, they're telling the story first with their data, of course, allowing folks to download it, but they're kind of leading with their story through visualizations. And one of those that I wanted to talk about is Public Works. And again, what they're doing in here, these are just embeds of ArcGIS dashboards, very simple dashboards at that, but that's what this is, right? It's just a chart inside of a dashboard showing the top 5 task locations that they're just dropping into a hub site dynamically, right? They're showing the density of that work and maybe a more robust dashboard that they've embedded inside of this hub page that really carves up the work orders by priority, the top 5 work order tasks. It's showing work orders completed by year or over time, right? So that's what this is showing here, and then the density of that work that's being done. So again, very simple, focused dashboard, but pretty powerful, and it enhances the story that they're trying to tell inside of this ArcGIS Hub example. Oh boy, I could go on and on. I think I've already spent too much time, but just really quickly, a couple of other ones. I took some of their Johns Creek, so back to Johns Creek, they publish out an expenditure data set through their open data site. This is not their example. This is a demo that I put together, but it represents another example of using dashboards, maybe not for like the traditional GIS work that folks are used to doing, but this is communicating, okay, it's almost like a checkbook, right? The city checkbook. Where are funds or where are our expenditures going to? So in this case, you can carve up this data and maybe filter it down by the fund name. So maybe I'm interested in those expenditures coming out of the general fund for police administration. And hopefully my little internet router up there is surviving. Okay, there it goes. And again, you'll see all of this information kind of filtered down. So again, you're kind of carving up the data. In this case, maybe I'm interested in, again, expenditures from the general fund, police administration for professional services, right? And it shows a list of the top 25 expenditures that satisfy those upstream queries that I just set up. And then expenditures over time. So again, maybe not a traditional use of dashboards or operations dashboards, but kind of one of the reasons why we shifted name. And this is just a dashboard, right? Not really any operational or real-time information coming through it, but just a good way to visualize this data. So I'll skip a couple of these. One thing that I did want to call out, I mentioned our ArcGIS solutions. This is where if I was in front of you guys up in the park up there, I'd say, hey, have you ever heard of the ArcGIS solutions? Raise your hand, right? Hopefully you have solutions.arcgis.com. These are kind of pre-canned templates and solutions that are just shipping with ArcGIS, like I mentioned before. And they're using, in a lot of these solutions, the underlying technology can be using dashboard. And if you go into solutions.arcgis.com and then go to the gallery and by the product being used, ArcGIS dashboards, you can get a feel for how our solutions team is using dashboards to kind of configure and support some workflows that are common across our business units that we support. So I would say this is, as much as, products that we deliver with ArcGIS, as much as inspirational examples for you guys to just get a better feel for what's possible with the dashboard capability. So just wanted to call that out. And one of those examples is our performance management solution, which at the heart of it is a dashboard, and that's what you're looking at right here. This is a performance management solution with ArcGIS dashboards under the hood, and it's all around communicating how this community is doing in economic opportunity and affordability. So key metrics in support of that strategic initiative are an employment rate, graduation rate, right? You guys can read all these different metrics. But inside of each of these little panels for each metric, I can see how we're tracking, right, against our target and when it was last measured. So we're doing good with the unemployment rate, but not so good with this metric down here, the 50% income to housing. We can see how we're tracking over time against that particular metric and more details about maybe where that data is coming from. And it is geography-based too. So if I select maybe a particular district up here, maybe I'm only interested in District 4 because I'm, I don't know, council person from District 4. I can filter this down, and then everything in that dashboard, not sure if you guys caught that, but the entire dashboard updated based on metrics and measurements for that particular geography. And where this particular solution is being leveraged right now is with the City of Columbus, and they're there's a big initiative right now for infant mortality in the Central Ohio area, and the City of Columbus has created this task force called Celebrate One to address this problem. And they're using some of our tools, particularly this performance management solution with dashboards, to communicate how they're doing, with particular metrics in this initiative, right? So this is out there in the wild right now. They have it configured to track against particular neighborhoods, but you get the idea, right? So that's out there being used right now. Okay, that was a lot of dashboards. I'm gonna go bounce back into slides. Hopefully that made some sense, and hopefully it was helpful to kind of see some of those in action. And actually, let me, quite honestly, the next slide before I go into presentation mode was actually authoring dashboards. So instead of going into presentation mode, I think I'll just bring up another browser and get into actually building out a dashboard and what that looks like. So before I do that, I just want to track and make sure that I'm looking at the questions really quickly. Okay, I see one. Can we access dashboards on a mobile device in the field? The answer is yes. That is a newer enhancement, but it's been, so when we went to the browser-based builder, which was around the 10.5, 10.6 release, we allowed people to build dashboards directly in the browser and then view them in the browser as well. Before that, you had to download a Windows application, build the dashboard locally, ship it up to ArcGIS Online, ArcGIS Enterprise, kind of a clunky workflow. But that operation view, you were never able to actually view that information on a mobile device. With the newest iteration of ArcGIS dashboards, we've lifted that, I guess, hindrance, right? And you can view you can view dashboards on a mobile device. Now, I wouldn't say it's particularly like responsive in design. There's got to be some serious thought on the user and the builder's end to actually make a dashboard look really good on a mobile device. So I will just say that there's some caveats with it. Like, for example, if you build a dashboard right now in the desktop and you pull it up on a tablet or on an iPhone, it's just going to scrunch all those elements just like you build it on the desktop. So you might want to think about, okay, if this is going to be used for a mobile device, I should probably think through the design of my dashboard and make sure my components and the elements are, in appropriate places so it does look and behave well on a dashboard. So long-winded way of answering yes, with some caveats and some thought that you got to do to kind of make it look and behave good. I've got a blog that I can share with you guys afterwards that is really good, that talks about considerations for building dashboards for mobile devices, and that might be good, maybe as a leave behind. But okay, that looks like it's it for now. So what I wanted to do is I'm going to switch over to Firefox and just start through or talk through the building and the creation of a dashboard. So I am in my ArcGIS Online organization right now, and there's a couple of ways before we actually get into the builder experience of dashboard. There's a couple of different ways you can hook into a dashboard, so into that builder experience directly from ArcGIS Online. So right now I'm logged in, I'm looking at my content right now. I could do a couple of things right away, right? So I could add an item, create an item and just go dashboard, and that's just going to launch the dashboard experience like right away, right? So that we're not taking any map and pushing it into the dashboard. We're just opening up the dashboard capability, and you're going to start from scratch. Maybe select the map, maybe not select the map, and just find a data set that you want to chart and do some things with inside a dashboard. That's one way to hook into it. Another way is to go into the app switcher and then find dashboards right here, and that'll launch it as well. Another way is if you find a particular web map, and this is the web map that we're going to be working off of. If you get into that web map and you've got everything kind of configured in the way that you want it, you can go share, create a web app like you've used to do. This is probably the most common way to push data into a web application builder. Dashboards is supported. So again, you could push this web map to one of our configurable applications, maybe web app builder, and then of course ArcGIS dashboards as well. So that is there. And then another way, let me just find a web map very quickly. I can open up, this is just not a great example, but it is a web map. If I go to the web map item details page, I can get information on the metadata about that particular web map, what's included in that web map, and then I can say create web app right from here. Configurable apps, web app builder, even story maps here, but then I can push this particular web map into that dashboard builder experience. So 4 different ways to access the dashboard builder. 2 ways, you're not starting with a web map at all. The other 2 ways, you're actually pushing up a web map, the data inside of that web map, and it's all just going to be consumed by the dashboard builder experience, and then you can start working with the data sets inside that web map. But I just kind of wanted to talk through that nuance. Okay, so let me close that out. Yeah. So we will go through the workflow of taking a web map, configuring it here, and then sharing it out through the share button. But before I do, I just wanted to call out a couple of things inside of this web map. Pretty basic. We're looking at essentially water bodies across Maryland. I know it's not a local example, just bear with me. But again, we're showing these, again, they're water quality sites, I think is what they are. That's the intent of this, but they're water bodies across Maryland. There's some filters applied to this data set. So this is a filter showing those water bodies that are of okay and advisory sites. These are unknown condition sites. We've got Maryland counties underneath, right? There's symbology already applied to these data sets. Moreover, there is some scale dependency rendering that's been applied to these data sets, all again authored inside of that web map experience, right? So you're authoring your web map, you're changing symbology, you're updating pop-up configurations, right? That's all set up. So if I poke at the map and select one of these, you're going to get, nice, legible, easy to read sort of pop-up configuration. The other thing that I wanted to call out is there should be some bookmarks in here. So Annapolis, that might not have been, so Baltimore, right? It zooms right in. I'm mentioning all of this right now because when you go in and save this web map, right, and then say share, create a web app, and then dashboards, all of that configuration that you're doing in the web map is just sucked up and observed, and you can start using that inside of the dashboard experience. So we just dropped that same web map and pushed it into the web app, or I'm sorry, the dashboard builder experience right here. So again, maybe that's repetitive, or maybe that's like, duh, Ryan, of course that should happen. But I just wanted to call that out for maybe some of the newer users of ArcGIS, that's a way to start. Build your web map, drop in your layers, configure them, and then push it up into the builder experience. Okay, so from here, let's start kind of building this thing out, right? So the way it works is every single element inside of a dashboard has some configuration options up in the top left-hand corner, right? So I can do this by configuring right there and clicking on that gear. So for the map element, right, I can click that gear and I can set up some different capabilities, right? Maybe I want to turn on the legend, layer visibility. Maybe I'll for the base map switcher. I can give that element a name, which helps later on when you try to tie actions to this particular element. I'm just going to keep it map 1 right now because I know there's only going to be one map in this, but there's some options that you can do here. some map actions. So if I had other elements inside of this dashboard, I don't yet, but I will in a second. If I wanted to, say, filter down another widget, maybe I have a list or a pie chart showing information about the features in the map, and I wanted to, say, when I map extent it changes, filtered those different widgets down based on what I'm seeing inside of my map extent. And apologies, I don't know if you can hear my kids coming home, but looks like the park visit is done. So apologies if you hear some background noises. I'm in the basement here. But then moving on, right, some specific layer actions too. So if a selection changes for one of these layers, do something with that selection, right? Maybe filter down another element, right? This is that cross-filtering that I talked about earlier in my slides that's available. So these are specific configuration options for the map element. Every single element's going to be different. You're going to see different element, configuration options based on what you've selected. It just takes a little bit of just playing around with what's available out there, right? There's great documentation. You can always call up me or Esri if you've got specific questions, but a lot of this is just kind of getting used to it and playing with it because I don't have time to go through every single element and all the options available in each element. You might not want to listen through that anyways. I might put you to sleep. So anyway, I'm going to cancel that because I think the configuration is good for the map. But let's say I wanted to add a header, and I could say I want it large, and I could say Maryland water bodies, water body inventory. How's that? Can't spell. I could give it a subtype, maybe built with ArcGIS dashboards. If I had a logo or an icon, I can select an icon if I want to. What one maybe make some sense? Closest thing to water. There you go. How's that? I could change the color of that, right? So these are just specific configuration options for that header. I'll leave it at that. Maybe I'll change the built. And now I've got a nice looking header. Maybe the next thing that I want to do is just create a list of all of those, again, the water bodies that are of OK advisory. So they're doing inspections out there and there's some kind of status on these water bodies that we're polling against and we filtered down. Maybe I just want to show a list of those. So what I can do is drop in the list widget and grab that OK and advisory site. So again, water bodies that are satisfying that particular query. And again, what's nice about a lot of these or many of these elements is it's kind of what you see is what you get inside of the builder experience. So as I start configuring things on the left-hand side, this is what that element is going to look like inside of the dashboard. So I can, put a filter on this if I wanted to. The filter's already been applied in the web app, so I think we're good there. But maybe I want to adjust what that list looks like. So this is where, and again, a unique configuration to the list widget. Here's a rich text editor that basically allows you to type in some text and it'll show that right for each of those features. So let's make this actually legible. We'll say water body name is that, and if I click on these little curly brackets, what's great about this is because I selected that particular feature layer, this is just grabbing into those the fields or the attributes for that particular feature layer, and now I can just grab that water body name, and I dropped it in the wrong spot, so let me cut and paste, right? And I can maybe bold this. Maybe I want to change the color of it to blue. No, that's the background color. Apologies on that. Maybe it's blue. Yeah, and go to town. So maybe I can do some other water body type. Right, so it makes it nice and legible here. So you could put like a full-flowing, you can really go to town with some interesting configurations here. You can make it like almost like a paragraph, or in this case, I'm almost mimicking what a pop-up would look like, where it's, attribute value on each line. But it's pretty customizable here because you've got that rich text editor. So let's say this just goes bold, and maybe we'll drop the size down to 11 for that one. I can also say, do I want the symbol that's associated with that particular web map? Again, the symbology that was set up on this feature layer before I dropped it into the web map. It's showing that right here, or I can turn that off if I want to. I think it kind of adds something to it by keeping that symbol. And again, there's some other options here too, right? So the general options are, maybe I want to give this a title. So water body loader body. Sorry about that. I can't type when people are watching. So that's the title. Maybe I want to bold this. Maybe I want to center it. Maybe I want to change that color to blue again and beef it up. Maybe to a real header, right? That looks good. Again, a rich text editor, so I could drop in whatever I wanted here. An image, you can go to town. You could create links. So maybe I wanted, if somebody clicked on it, for whatever reason, I can drop in a link and bounce out to another website. I won't do that here, but again, there's a lot of options here. And then there's other things here that, you know, some text color and all that kind of stuff that I won't get into. So for every single widget that I was talking about, remember this cross-filtering capability, that's configured on the action section for every single dashboard element. So in this case, because it's a list widget, when I select one of these features in the list, what do I want to have happen? Do I want to have single selection only, or do I want to have multiple? So people can select multiple, you know, water bodies in this case on that list. I'll keep it to single right now, but when that selection changes, I'm going to add an action, and the only other element that I have right now is a map. So the only I have associated with that particular type of element, it's going to be, maybe I want to pan the map to it. Actually, no. Well, there's the map, right? I can add that target right there to the map. Maybe I want to flash it on the map as well, right? Again, when I make that selection. So if I click done, this is going to drop that newly created dashboard and give me that list, or I'm sorry, that new widget or element. And if I click on one of these, maybe, oh, did I save it? Give it a shot again. Something might be going on with my configuration, or maybe my, maybe it's stuck right now. My internet's kind of, there it goes. You know, it was just lagging a little bit. So the map did focus, and you can see the location of that, you know, being flashing. That was the configuration of that action. So that's the list widget. Yeah, again, I got a delay here. I think it's because of my browser and my internet speed. Okay, again, I can go on and on. Maybe I'll drop in another one. Maybe I can do, just for example, maybe a pie chart, right, of those OK and advisory sites. And again, just like that list widget, I have the ability to see this information and see what that visualization is going to look like as I start configuring it over here on the right-hand side. Maybe. And there's, again, specific configurations that you're going to see over here based on that selection of pie chart, right? So in this case, do I want to filter it? What do I want to visualize by? Maybe I want to see the number, maybe a pie chart broken out by the types of water bodies out there, right? Before I select that, what's really nice about a lot of these more data-intensive elements is it shows this show data table. So you can actually, this will pull that service or that data set, and you can actually see what you're looking at in the raw data and what you want to visualize. So that's kind of nice instead of maybe you've got it open in another browser on another screen, that actual raw data in the web map, in that attribute table. You can actually get a visualization. If this ever loads here, apologies, I think my internet's slow, but it'll show the actual raw data here, so you can get a sense for what's there. So in this case, that water body type, I see a handful of different options. So I want to make that pie chart based on that selection. So we'll go in and show the preview instead. And my category field could be water body type, and this is super basic. The statistic is just going to be a count of those those different grouped values for water body type. Beautiful. And the colors should come over. But it's showing me what it's going to look like. Now there's other configuration options. I can, change the text color. I can show, do I want a legend? Maybe I want to show the value in a legend. Oh, there's my colors that came through. So that's going to turn on and off that legend. Do I want to place that legend on the side? Maybe I don't because I want to see the visualization bigger. You know, the slices, this is where we can get into the color ramps for these different slices. So it might be nice to maybe match each of these based on a maybe symbology in a map if I had that symbology present in the map. But you can go in and change the color of these and change the label of them if you've got some clunky, you know, or some ugly data inside of the raw data set. This is almost like a field alias if you're used to that. You know, so there's a handful of configuration options just like in that list widget. I will configure actions again, and again, the selection mode is going to be similar to what we saw in the list widget, but again, this selection is going to be clicking on a piece of the pie, right? So when that selection happens, what do I want to have happen? Maybe I want to filter that data set to only show those data sets throughout the entire dashboard that actually satisfies that filter when I click on pond, right? Maybe I want to also filter down my list, right? So when I select pond, only show those features that actually satisfy that pond query. And if I click pond, hopefully this loads decent. I don't know if that made sense the way I talked through that, but I think it'll make sense once I start to show it. So if I make a selection, maybe I'm interested in those that are of lake type. All of this should filter down once my internet kicks up. Maybe. Oh, it did. Yeah, sorry. It is doing it, right? So you'll see it's only showing those that are of lake type right there as I made that selection. Okay, so I can go on and on. It's 1/4 after already. The other thing that I wanted to talk about, maybe shifting gears away from like the configuration of particular dashboard elements, but it's just the resizing and kind of shaping and building this dashboard out. So this is kind of what I was alluding to when you create mobile dashboards. You really want to think about where elements are positioned. There's a lot of flexibility in that when you actually build these dashboards in the builder. So I can go to that same configuration and I can say, you know, I don't want to configure this right now, but I just want to move this and maybe want to drag that particular element and anchor it just below that list widget, right? So I can do that drag and drop in. Maybe I want to drag that item and stack those elements, right, on each other, and then I've got tabs that I can bounce back and forth between, right? So that's all possible. And I've seen some pretty complex dashboards that take advantage of this stacking element thing. But again, it's dragging and dropping and just kind of shaping this thing out, right? Okay, I'll click save, and that's pretty much what I wanted to show inside of the dashboard builder experience. I hope that was helpful. Again, there's more elements like I haven't even touched on, the gauge element, which is super popular, indicators showing stats about a particular element or a data set. There's a lot here. So I'll click save. The next step, right, would be to share this thing out. So what has happened on the back end? Well, the first thing that you could do is simply go to this drop down and say share link, and we have a link that's created for you right here. So I can say copy that and maybe drop that into a new browser tab, and that's going to open up that dashboard in view mode only. The other thing that happens back in, maybe I'll start back and go into all of my dashboards. These are dashboards that I have created, and then these are dashboards that have been shared to me. This is kind of like the dashboard for your dashboards, if that makes any sense. But that dashboard has been created here, and I can go back in at any time and edit it. I could share it from here and do all that stuff right directly from this dashboard experience for dashboards. And then the other thing that's happened, if I go back into my content, of course, an item has been created, right? So it's a different dashboard item that is ultimately consuming some other elements or items, which is a web map and some layers, right? But that new element got created. And all the sharing capabilities that you're used to inside of any item inside of ArcGIS or any web application are there. So I can share this, I can edit it directly from here. All of that's done there. Okay, I think that's what I wanted to show there. I'm going to kick it back over to slides, but as I do in transition, I'm going to check on some questions. Okay, so here's one. Thank you very much. ArcGIS Companions, you have to download and access dashboards on a mobile device. Okay, yeah, so the question was, ArcGIS Companion is the app to download and access dashboards on a mobile device. Actually, the ArcGIS Companion app is a new capability that allows you to do some management things inside of your WebGIS, whether it's ArcGIS Online or ArcGIS Enterprise. So it allows you to share content, certainly view content, but you can do some more administrative workflows all from a mobile device, right? Like I said, share, unshare. You know, there's more robust capabilities, but that's the first capability that comes to mind. So again, it's that mobile companion app to what you're used to seeing inside of a browser like I'm seeing right here. But more broadly, you know, you don't actually need that application just to view a dashboard on a mobile device. If anybody has this link and they pull it up on a mobile device in Safari or Chrome on that mobile device, it's going to work, and it's just going to show it like it is right now. So again, there comes those mobile considerations, but it'll work without any ArcGIS Companion app associated with it. It's just a website, right? The other question is, hopefully that answers that. The other question is, can you create dashboards if you do not have an organizational account? I don't believe you can. I don't believe you can. I think the answer is no. So that's kind of like a free trial account, or just a free account that gives you some access. I don't believe you have any access to actually building any of our applications. There's a hesitancy in me in that, and I can double check. Whoever that is, you can feel free to ping me, rsellman@esri.com, and I think I've got the link here, in my slides, but feel free to reach out, but I'm pretty sure you can't do that without an organizational account. Okay, good questions. Let me go back into my slides and just really kind of wrap some things up. Okay. So what's new? I've already highlighted some of that, but some things that I haven't talked about yet I think are really important. And the first one is arcade support. Look at my slides. I've got it wrong. It should be ArcGIS dashboard. Don't tell anybody in Redlands, but arcade support in ArcGIS dashboard. So Arcade, this is again where I'd say who's heard of Arcade and who's worked with Arcade, but I can't see that right now, so I'm just going to talk through it as if nobody has used it before, and that's okay. But I would really, really strongly encourage you to understand Arcade and get a sense for what it is. It is our expression and scripting language made by Esri, right? So think of building an expression inside of ArcMap, right, with like VB script or Python 9.3, right? Building an expression that way. Arcade is essentially the next generation of that, and ultimately should be what you use for all of your expressions. And the real reason is it's portable across the platform. So what that means is if you build an expression in a map inside of ArcGIS Pro, publish that map and the associated data set to ArcGIS Online, ArcGIS Online just works against that Arcade expression. So you don't have to rewrite anything. It just works platform-wide. And that's really, really powerful. It saves a lot of time, right? I think you probably wrap your head around why that's important. But that's the biggest reason. There are some security, like very technical reasons why we've created this that I'm not going to get into right now, but that's the big reason, is the portability across the platform with Arcade. And for a while, so again, yeah, a couple more bullets, can be authored and executed across the entire ArcGIS platform. Some examples of using Arcade are, the classification of numeric data, date differences, concatenating text from multiple fields, date formatting, right? Things that you normally do with other expression languages can all be done inside of Arcade. I would strongly, strongly encourage you to understand what Arcade is, because it is the expression language moving forward, and it's platform agnostic. So inside of Dashboard, right? This hasn't been available inside of Dashboard. So what's new is the acceptance of Arcade and the recognition of Arcade inside of the newest iteration of ArcGIS Dashboard. So you can do things like symbolize features in the map element with an Arcade expression, or generate a crazy pop-up, right, with details of features with an Arcade expression, do some weird things, and I've got some examples here coming up. But if you have Arcade inside of your pop-up, in the web map that's feeding the dashboard, that would just work inside a dashboard now. So this is a really important shift, and it was shipped out around, I think, the Dev Summit back in February. So relatively new, but really, really important. So like I mentioned already, so symbology inside of a map element. Say in this case you wanted to symbolize your features. These are crime incidents, right? symbolize them based on a size, but based on how long ago they were actually reported. So this is so minutes since report. This is a arcade expression that has been written that does a basic date diff function, which says right now when I open up this web map or this dashboard, right, take that, subtract it from the report date, and print that out in minutes, right? And round it up to the nearest minute. That's what this is saying. So now that I have that expression built, right, when you go to symbolize your map and the layer inside of that map element, now I can actually symbolize based on that newly created expression. That data wasn't otherwise actually inside of the data set per se, but it's being executed on the client or the web application in real time, right? So you can do some really interesting things with the symbology of your data with Arcade. I hope that made some sense. Another example is pop-ups inside of the map, right? So the example down here is showing the priority of some of these. I think this is, again, that same crime information, but changing the color inside of the pop-up based on the priority, right? So this is showing hex color by priority, and it's saying if that priority from the feature, so this priority is actually a field inside of that data set. If that equals 1, make the color this. If it equals 2, make the color this, and so on, right? So when that dashboard gets pulled up, that is executed, and you can see when you poke at the map, that's going to show up differently based on what priority that particular feature is at, right? So things like that. Those are some more, I think those are pretty good examples that represent what you can do with it, but it's pretty robust and there's a lot more there. And it's not just, the typical expressions that we're used to doing in ArcMap. It's, being able to symbolize that in the browser inside of a dashboard and really make it light up across the platform. So super important. That's Arcade. Okay, the next thing that I wanted to talk about, I mentioned already, is embedding content, right? There's a new element, just like the list widget or just like the header widget that I mentioned before. It's a new element called embedded content, and this allows you to drop in web pages, video, apps, anything with a URL, social media content, even surveys or other applications, drop them directly inside of your dashboard, right? So for video, you can get the embed code, like it's an HTML fragment, drop that in there. There's a lot of, think of it almost like an iframe, but it's just out of the box inside of the embed content widget. And actually, I think, just bear with me for a moment, I have an example of that, I thought. Oh, did I? Yeah. Oh, no, it's not working. I was trying to put something together. Yeah, that's not. Let's see if it works. What I was trying to do with this, and I don't know if it's going to work, but this is the embedded content widget inside of a different dashboard. But the way it works is you could wire up a layer. So what I was doing here, and I just think my internet's chugging, so I'll try to talk through this and hopefully it makes some sense. I've added in a parcel layer from Summit County, and say on selection in the same brand that you wanted to see the proper parcel, right? So the way that would work is, instead of going, so you drop in your URL, right, and that's the URL to that particular website, the fiscalweb.summitoh.net, and instead of static URL on website, again, in this particular case, the property record card system inside of Summit County accepts a URL parameter which says, give me that parcel number. And in the features for this particular layer, I can say in the field, the par ID number is that. I pass that into that URL. And then click that, and I just think I'm chugging right now. But the idea is on selection, that would actually pop up for the particular selected parcel. And we're just not. So I kind of limped through that a little bit. I apologize on my bandwidth and my internet, but I hope that made some sense. So there's some pretty cool stuff that you can do with this. All right, so back to my slides real quickly. I apologize that that didn't pan out like I thought it would. But, more questions on that, please let me know. Okay, so that's the embedded content element. Other examples of using embedded content, you could type in survey 123 web forms, okay, and put them in edit mode. Right, if you're used to using our web application or our mobile application for building surveys, well, there's actually a browser view mode, so you can pull up that survey in a browser. You can drop that URL for that survey, make a selection on a feature inside of that dashboard, and when you make that selection, open up that particular survey or that record inside of the survey form and make some changes to it all directly inside of that survey, which is ultimately embedded in the dashboard. So that's another example of that. And again, I can show that maybe offline, but I hope that makes some sense. You can embed web app builder applications, and that way you can drop in some editing workflows if you needed to, because there's no editing out of the box editing widgets inside a dashboard. And even drop in 3D web scenes if you needed 3D visualizations inside of your dashboard. So that's embedded content. Relatively new-ish, but that's not super new, but the concept I just wanted to talk through because I think it is actually new. Okay, how about this? Dashboards being able to, on a map extent change or a selection change triggered by the user, do something with another widget. If I make a selection in the list widget, filter down my other pie chart based on that selection. You can configure and apply multiple filters to drill down on data. There's a lot you can do here. So I've kind of beat that one to death. I think it makes sense, hopefully. And then the next one, I know we're running up against it here. I apologize, and I'm almost done. But selectors and filters, I didn't get into this just yet, but these are selectors that you can set up inside of the dashboard in either the header or the side panel widget, or element rather, and you can filter down a data set so that filter applies to the entire dashboard, right? So if you've got, in this case, what you're seeing here are crimes in that dashboard, and that crime layer is being used in a series of elements. Maybe there's a pie chart, maybe there's a list of those crimes, right? Maybe there's a map of those crimes, of course, and you only wanted to see dashboard-wide those crimes that were in the last 10 minutes. You could set up a selector which ultimately filters that data set down by the last 10 minutes, and that'll just, light up the rest of that dashboard based on that query. Again, this other example is the incident severity, right? Same type of thing. If you wanted to filter down those incidents by a particular type of severity, you could do that as well. This comes in the form of buttons like you see here in this image, and it also comes in the form of drop downs, like a pick list, right? And then again, you configure those actions, and it can be an attribute action, again, against a filter on another element widget, or a spatial action on the map itself. So selectors and filters are they're not super new, but I just wanted to make sure that you guys were aware of those. And I think you saw some of that in action, particularly when I had that performance management dashboard up for Celebrate One in the city of Columbus. When I did that filter by district or by neighborhood, that was a selector widget inside a dashboard. Okay. And then what's new? I think we've talked about a lot of these, but some other things, just real quickly, dashboard level settings. So being able to select colors and unit prefix configuration and the element resize options, being able to set those up at the dashboard level and not just a particular element level or dashboard element. So changing colors based on the entire dashboard and not just the list widget, right? Those are new. There are new action capabilities. So show pop-up, I think I showed that earlier, but follow feature. So think in that case, if you're tracking snowplows across your community and you wanted to select one of those snowplows and follow that and move the map along with that truck moving or that snowplow moving across the street, you could do that too now with this follow feature action. I mentioned this already, and it's already been asked, but unlock the ability to view on smartphones. Again, not super new, but I think it's really important. I just wanted to call that out here. And you see one right now, right on this mobile application, and how that is just kind of configured a little bit differently than what you would normally see in a bigger dashboard. And then just typical bug fixes, enhancements, improvements, which are ongoing, right? We make updates to this 4 to 6 times. I mentioned 4 times, but it's anywhere from 4 to 6 times in ArcGIS Online. There are updates coming out. Now, if you have dashboard inside of ArcGIS Enterprise, that would be, to get those new updates, you'd have to update your portal itself, right? And that would then ship with all of those, newest, latest, and greatest in dashboard enhancements, along with anything else that's been updated inside a portal. So point is, if you wanted to get the latest and greatest in dashboard for your portal instance, you have to do an actual upgrade. And that's just, just what happens when you're deploying and using ArcGIS Enterprise. But with ArcGIS Online, we ship them 4 to 6 times a year, and you just get access right away. So I'll leave these behind. Again, that dashboard blog on how to build, considerations for smartphone construction of dashboards. That's a really good one if you're going to build dashboards for mobile devices. I'd encourage you to read through that. I hit on it a little bit, but that's very thorough, right? So, and then this is just a what's new blog that should be updated pretty regularly about what's coming and what's new inside of dashboard. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. My last slide is additional resources. So product documentation, solutions, where you can go and drop in ideas associated with dashboard. We build a lot of our technology based on the ideas of our users, so keep those coming. It's super important. We're a user-driven company, and a good example is that field maps capability that I talked about early on. That was just us listening to our users, and we built that out and incorporated all those requirements for that. So training, the dev team, that's a blanket alias email. Ping them. If you've got some strong requirements, or if you want to chat with somebody directly, I'd encourage you to use that. I don't think that they would care that I'm using that email out there. I think they accept that. Again, it's a user-driven company, so we want to make sure that we're gathering those requirements. So I'll kick these over to Dick, and hopefully he can kick the slides over to you all afterwards. Whirlwind, I'm only a couple minutes late. I apologize that I did run over a little bit, but that's all I had in terms of the presentation. Hopefully everybody's still with me. So there's a couple comments in here. I'll address these questions. Again, if there's other questions, please feel free to drop them into the chat. I'm happy to jump on them. I see one, City of Hudson put together a crash dashboard. Let's take a look at that real quick. The link is there. So let me end my slideshow. Oh yeah, this is awesome. This is amazing dashboard. Wow. Crash data from 2017 to 2019. That's pretty cool. I assume maybe Bo or Paul put that in. That's fantastic. Thanks for sharing. There's some filters. This is a good example of some of those filters and the selectors that I mentioned before. Buttons, drop downs, right? That's what I was talking about before. Yeah, cool. And then I think another question. Oops. Gosh, I had it. Oh, it's right here. What is better to use, Operations Dashboard versus the Experience Builder, or what are the differences? Yeah, that's a great question. So for those not familiar with Experience Builders, Experience Builder is a new web application builder experience. Sorry for the pun, but ultimately what it is, if you're used to working with Web App Builder, it's going to be, I think it's safe to say it's kind of the next iteration of that, right? It's built on newer underlying technology, newer JavaScript API, all of that. And I would say right now, at the moment, I don't think you have the ability to build any kind of dashboard looking like this. I know in Web App Builder there is a dashboard theme, but I don't think that has been ported over into Experience Builder. So to kind of get this at a glance single application, I think you'd have a hard time with Experience Builder. And moreover, I would say the actions that you have and that I've demonstrated, being able to tie elements together, select this bar in this bar chart and filter down another data set, I don't think that would be supported inside of Experience Builder. So again, if you wanted that cross-filtering or that kind of experience, again, no pun intended, I think Dashboard would be a better fit right there. Those are kind of two reasons off the top of my head. I hope that helps. There's probably going to be some other ones when I lay in bed tonight and start thinking about that question, but I think that's the biggest one right now.
Ryan, this is Dick.
Yep. Hey, Dick.
How do both of those relate with story maps?
Yeah. It's a good question, right? So I would say, so story maps allows you to, it's an easier way to build out a narrative, right, with visuals like video, anything multimedia, right? So that's and it's almost like a flowing journal in a way, right? Whereas with these applications, it's kind of one single screen, one app, one at-a-glance dashboard, or one application that's more of like your traditional web mapping application like you've seen in Web App Builder. That kind of experience is an experience builder as well. So I would say if you're looking for more of like a site builder or trying to, tell a story or, build that narrative out. I know it's kind of a weak description, but I think you get it. That's where I'd go with Story Map and maybe Hub, right? Those are kind of lumped together. But whereas with Dashboard and Experience Builder, if you're looking for, more of a GIS kind of experience or the ability to carve up data, visualize data, right? Search on information, those are more suited for Experience Builder and Dashboard. I know there's a lot of overlap, right, with a lot of our applications. I don't know if that was a clear answer, but I don't know if that helps.
Can you actually, so you can embed an operations dashboard within a story map?
You could.
Couldn't you?
You could totally do it.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, there's a similar embed feature inside of Story Maps. You could totally do that. Yep. There is actually one of the more popular workflows shifting to Experience Builder. And I want to say that Johns Hopkins example has this. So say you wanted the same dashboard, one URL, right, but to work against any device, right? I want that URL to show a dashboard on the full screen, but I don't want to share out a different URL for a mobile application, right? Even though it's the same information, it's the same visualization, same data. That's clunky, right? That's not an experience our customers are used to. What you could do in Experience Builder is build two different dashboards. One's for the mobile device and one's for the desktop, right? In Experience Builder, there is a capability in there to drop those both in and only show one once it hits a particular screen resolution or size, right? So you could open it up on a dashboard. It's going to show the bigger dashboard that you've configured on a desktop. But then if somebody opened up that same experience, that application on a mobile device, it's smart enough to understand, okay, this is a smaller screen resolution, show this dashboard that's actually configured for the mobile device. I hope that makes sense, but it's a good kind of hack workaround if you want one dashboard for multiple devices embedded in Experience Builder and take advantage of some of those configurations there. But yeah. But to your point, yes, you can drop in dashboards inside of Story Maps and Hub and anything else. Yep.
All righty. Any other questions out there? You can unmute. I know we're kind of over, but I would love to do a quick roll call since all I'm looking at is like 19 and 11 and 8. It just would be nice to know kind of who's on. And when I'd be sending out putting my email onto the chat and letting everybody know to send me an email if you want a copy of this presentation, since I can't really send it to viewer 21.
I'm going to go and...
And again, that's dick.katapish@gmail.com. So I don't know if people want to, we might kind of step over each other, but it'd be great to hear who's on the call real quick, and then we can move on.
Hi, Mark Heyman from CT Consultants.
Chris Sulak from University.
Brian George, ODNR, Office of Coastal Management.
Carla Straharsky, Summit County.
Carla.
Hello.
Hey, this is Donovan Powers from the Department of Natural Resources.
Susan Chapman with the City of Hudson.
Susan, this hub is amazing. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you. We developed a new data team, and Emily Fernandez and myself have been working diligently on trying to put together a data hub for the City of Hudson. So
that's
we
fantastic.
appreciate all the products that we utilize with ArcGIS online.
That's great. Yeah, I didn't know this was out there. Yeah, thanks for sharing. this is, we'll be sharing this internally. Great. I'll shut up now. Sorry.
Tim Howard, City of Sullivan here.
Hi, Lisa from Lake County, Ohio. I'm the one that asked you about the account information, about whether you had to have an organizational account. Could you have a personal account?
Say it again.
I'm the one that asked you about the question about the organizational account.
Yep.
Could you, if you had a personal account, not a free one, but you know, could you use the dashboard in that?
Yeah, man, I just don't know for sure. That one I want to say yes. I'm inclined to say yes, but can I follow up with you maybe afterwards? I don't know if you can drop in your email or if you're comfortable with that, or maybe I have it somewhere, but I'll double check on that and what requirements you actually need to build it out. I'm sorry, it doesn't help others on the call if I email her directly, but I just need to look to confirm.
Hey, Lisa, which department are you in?
I'm not with any department. I'm not.
Oh. Sorry, I thought you meant Lake County.
I did work with you for a day at Western Reserve Land Conservancy.
Yes, I remember you.
Yeah. No, this is really great. And I'm just trying to figure out some way to, keep up with the technology when you're not connected with an organization that has all these, accounts.
So to be clear, so you're paying $100 for the ArcGIS for personal use, just to be clear. Does that sound right?
I don't currently have them, but I believe that sounds right.
Yeah. So I think that comes with the creator user type inside of ArcGIS Online, and you should be able to actually with that. Now this is for non-commercial uses, right? It's personal for a reason, right? So you can play with it and kind of touch the technology and get used to it, but you should be able to with that. Yeah.
Or if you had your own website that you're not talking about generating, and you could connect it through that way. Like if you had, like I do a lot of nature things. Yeah. So if I did surveys out in an area and I wanted to provide whatever data, could you do that?
Yeah, that would be probably a use case for purchasing like a full-on ArcGIS Online account, right? Which is, it would cost you $500 for a full-blown creator license, so you could actually build and use that in production for a project like you're talking about right now. The spirit of the personal use is for testing and for, your own, again, non-commercial, non-project type of use cases. Yeah. But we can, I can run it to ground further if you want to chat offline. I hope that helps.
Oh, no, it does. Thank you very much.
Okay. Sure. Yep.
Anybody else out there?
Senator Robert Erickson, the Ohio Turnpike Commission.
Alrighty. I'm sorry, I got some feedback there. Thanks, Ryan. It's always excellent to watch your presentations. This is great. We've been recording it, so I will, if people want to send me their emails again, I'll probably also eventually get a link on the GUONO website to the recording as soon as I can. All right, everybody.
Thanks for the invite. Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah, it was a lot of people showed up. It's great. It was good to hear some of your voices briefly. Virtual hugs to everybody.
Yes. Likewise.
Right back to you. Thanks.
All right. Everybody have a great day.
All right.
You too. Bye-bye.
So long. Bye.
Bye.